Hi, and in this video we're going to show you how to make variables in the QPSMR companion. The definition of a variable as far as QPSMR companion is concerned is something that you're defining from other questions or other variables within your project. Now, I haven't got any variables in this survey yet, so the first thing I will define, the variable will come from questions, but after that I could define a variable from other variables if I wanted to. So let's look at 4 examples of that and work through those, and you should be able to get a feel for how you define variables within the QPSMR companion. So the first question I'm going to look at is the question age at the bottom here. You can see that's been collected as an integer, so I want to put that into some age ranges so that I can use that in analysis. So to do that, I can either click on this icon here or insert a variable. So I'm going to click on this icon here. I'm going to call the variable vAge. I'm going to make it single because they're only going to go into one of the age groups. Give the text age group. And now I can go into responses. And if I click this icon here, I can insert my first test that I want to implement. Now it defaults to F, which means false, which means nobody goes into here. And I can either here now go into the test and specify exactly how that's defined by using menu. So I can insert a test which comes from the question age, and I want a range of answers here between 16 and 24. So there's other options here to pick a specific value or a value greater than or less than, but I'm picking a range here of 16 to 24, and I click OK, and that should save that response for me. I can now add another one, and this time I'm going to type in some syntax. So this time I'm going to type in age 25 to 44, and you can see the dot there command means in the range of 25 to 44. You'll note down the bottom here that it's put the words age is in front. If you don't want that, you can just edit that and backspace, and indeed I could go back to the previous one and just edit that so it just says 16 to 24. And now I want anybody greater than 44 or 45 plus, so I'm going to click age in here and I'm going to type age greater than 44, and that means 45 or over. All right, so that's a little variable I've defined with my age grouped into 3 categories, and I could use that now in tables or to do some analysis within QPS if I wanted to. So let's quickly see that in action. I save it. If I go to analysis, I can go to the drill down menu here, choose my data file, and I could use that variable to analyze age by gender, for example. And I could turn on percentages here if I wanted to, and you can quickly see that in my survey I've got 4 respondents. 3 of them are 25 to 44 and 1 is 45 plus, with the relevant percentages added in as well. So it looks as though that variable on my data is working, and it's split by male and females on the drill down. All right, so that's a variable where we're defining something from an integer. The next thing that you might want to do is to have a banner on your table so that you can, or headings on your table, so that you can analyze every question by a number of categories. And also you could use this in the drill down then. And there's no limit to the number of things you can pick here, or it's 10,000 different things that you can pick, but let's pick gender, age, and maybe the answer to question 1. So I'm now going to insert a variable from the menus this time. I'm going to call this banner, which is what I want across the top of a lot of different tables, into responses. And this time I'm going to click this icon, which means I can pick all the responses from a particular entry, and I'm going to choose gender here. And sure enough, it will put in the 2 responses for gender. And there they appear now, male and female. And I can go to another single entry, pick vAge. So I'm picking a variable here to define a new variable from an existing variable. We've got those 3 responses we just put in. Click OK to those and OK again, and now my 3 ages are in. And finally I'm going to pick question 1 at the top here and include those. So now I've got a banner that I can use on tables and various bits of analysis. If you're going to use them in tables, the common thing to do here is to put a heading in. So we might enter the word gender here before it, and that acts as a heading with that backslash. Age as a heading here. So we just put that on the first one, and owner of bicycle here as a heading. And we could do some editing in this variable, having put the things in. We could, for example, collapse 16 to 44 as one category. So I could go in and edit this and change that to either of the 2 ages at VAs, the first 2 age categories. And again, tidy up the text so it says 16 to 44. I'd have to re-enter that heading of age, which means then we could just cut that away, and now I've got my ages collapsed down into 2 groups, 16 to 44 and 45 plus. So that's done that. So we've got banner, and I've just got an error message there because I haven't put a title in. So I don't want to put that, I just want to enter my title of banner, which I omitted just now. And sure enough, that variable is there, which means I can now use that in analysis. I've just got to save once more, analysis, drill down, use my data file, and we should be able to have banner as the columns, and I could analyze that for a question on the questionnaire. And here we are, we've got the analysis now. Again, I can invoke percentages, and we've got a cross tabulation of question 4 analysed by gender, age and ownership of a bicycle. Alright, so that's a variable where we're putting some categories together, usually for analysis purposes. The next type of variable I want to look at is where you want to put the answers together from more than one question in a quick way. So if we look at question 10A, B and C, you'll see that it asks what's the make of bicycle people like most, second most and third most. So it's possible I want to make a variable that has the top 3 answers by combining those 3 questions together to form one new variable. So let's insert a new variable. I'm going to call it VQ10, and I'm going to call this top 3 makes, and I can go into responses, click on the icon here, and you'll see there's a quick multiple OR. Now what this means is an OR definition means we want to combine the answers from those 3 questions. It's not and would mean they'd have to be answered given each response at each question, and of course that's not the case here. We want to pick up people who say the first answer at either the first, second or third choice, the second answer at the first, second or third choice, and so on. So I'm clicking OR, and I'm going to pick questions 10A, 10B and 10C. Click OK. You can see it's put the syntax up here with OR in it. Click OK again. You can see it's actually generated the sort of QPS syntax here by saying Q10A answer 1 plus means OR, Q10B answer 1 or Q10C answer 1, if we stretch it out there, down to answer 6. We could have typed those full definitions in as our definitions for the variable. We actually could have said Q10A/1 or Q10B/1 and so on, but that was obviously a quick way of doing it. And we can save that, and now we have VQ10 that once again we can use as a data drill down, and we could drag VQ10 into the rows and banner into the columns. And now we're starting, oh I picked the wrong thing, I picked the age. Let's put banner into here, and now we've got banner in here, and you can see I've got gender, age and ownership of bicycle for the makes, and also I get the count of the number of makes that they mentioned. Again, I can ask for percentages. so that I can see that of the males, only 50% gave make C, and so on. Alright, so that's another type of variable that you might want to have. Now, another type of variable that you might want is where you want to do some checking in data entry. So this is a variable that's not going to be used for analysis. It's actually going to be used for checking data as it's entered. So here, what I'm going to do, questions 8A, 8B and 8C ask what percentage of their time they spend cycling for leisure, for work and for some other reason. So we can reasonably expect that the sum of those figures should be 100%. So what we can do here, we can insert a variable that adds up those percentages. So let's call that VQ8. This one will remain an integer because I'm just adding the values together. I'm going to use syntax to do that. I could go and select each of the answers, but I'm going to use the syntax. Plus here means literally addition, just as you expect in arithmetic. So there it is in my definition. And in here, I could actually insert a filter entry called Q8 check. And the test I want to enter here is that VQA is not 100. And if it happens to be not 100, I want to hold it. So that's going to setting up a check, as it were, and it wants to be flagged or held if the value is not 100. So there it is. And now if we can test that just in data entry, we can highlight the questions we want to check here. So we can test that in data entry by doing a selected entries test. Just check it's on testing here. And we can just check that this works. So if we set 50%, 30% and 20%, that should proceed without a problem. Whereas if we test it now with 50%, 30% and 10%, it will error for us and tell us that the check has been hit. VQ8 was not 100, and it's telling us what answers we had here, 50, 30, 10, the sum was 90, therefore it hit the check and didn't let us proceed through data entry. Alright, so that's using a variable to check data entry, and that's another use of variables. So that completes this video on the basics of using variables in QPSMR. These variables could be used by clicking on this icon here. We can go through and use those variables in tabulations or full sets of tabulations, but tabulations is insight is covered in a separate video. Thank you.